I've already talked about if you should upgrade from the iPhone 15 to the 16 in this video right here. But what if you've got an older iPhone, like a 14, a 13, or even a 12? What sort of improvements do you get with a 16? Well, I'll be going through all of them, from the design improvements to the display, camera, performance, extra features, battery, and charging, to help you decide. Okay, so let's start off with the design on the standard models. If you're upgrading from either the 14, the 13, or the 12, you'll now get a much nicer frosted glass back, which feels so much better, and it doesn't get any fingerprints either. Additionally, you also get the vertical camera module on the back, which makes it look more fresh, in addition to some vibrant new colors, which I really love, especially the new blue, which I think is the best blue that Apple ever had. On the front, we now get the dynamic island, which I much prefer over the notch, as it takes up less space and also gives you some nice features like always seeing your deliveries or timer. Whereas on the sides, the frame is now more rounded, which does make it more comfortable to hold. The mute switch has now been replaced by the action button, which you can configure to pretty much do anything from launching a specific app to opening your garage door. And we also get the new camera control button right here that lets you quickly launch the camera and even control it by using gestures like swiping up and down to zoom in and out, changing the portrait mode depth effect, and more. So design-wise, if you've got an older standard model, the improvements that you get by upgrading to the 16 are pretty huge. And if you're thinking of upgrading, I would say definitely. Unless you really love the mini form factor, as that's sadly now gone and replaced by the Plus model. If you're coming from a Pro model, the main change here is the size. We now have a 6.3-inch display on the 16 Pro from a 6.1, and then a 6.9-inch on the Pro Max from the 6.7. However, they're not actually that much bigger. In fact, the 16 Pro Max is identical to the 14 Pro Max in terms of its width, and only a tiny bit taller. We also get some fresh new colors like natural titanium, a darker black titanium, and a new desert titanium, none of which were available on any of these previous models. The frame is also more rounded on the 16 Pros, which I do find to be more comfortable, especially when it comes to the Pro Max. Plus, the frame is now made out of titanium, which makes the 16 Pros both more durable and also lighter. Here are all of their weights listed. The 16 Pro Max is noticeably lighter than the 14 Pro Max and 13 Pro Max, and basically identical to the 12 Pro Max, which is very noticeable in the hand. On the front, if you're coming from the 14 Pro, you'll get thinner bezels. Whereas if you're coming from the 13 Pro or the 12 Pro, you'll also get the dynamic island. On the sides, just like the standard 16 models, we also get a customizable action button and the camera control button. And lastly, all the iPhone 16s feature Apple's latest ceramic shield glass for up to 50% better drop resistance. So design-wise, for the Pro models, if you're coming from the 14 Pro, I think that maybe you could upgrade for titanium, the action button, and the camera button. Whereas if you're coming from the 13 Pro or the 12 Pro, I would say definitely, as you're also getting that dynamic island. Which brings me to the display. On the standard models, if you're upgrading from the 13 or from the 14, you'll get a 2000 nit outdoor brightness from 800. And if you're upgrading from the 12, that goes up from 625. So this will actually make a huge difference in outdoor usage. And if you use your phone outdoors a lot, you could maybe upgrade from either of the previous models. On the Pro models, we do get a couple of extra changes. Brightness-wise, from the 14 Pro, we get no changes. From the 13 Pro, that goes up from 1000 to 2000 nits. And on the 12 Pro, that gets a bump from 800 to 2000. Now, the 16 Pro also features an always-on display, which I really love, as I can see the time and my notifications even when the display is off. The 14 Pro does have this, but the 13 Pro and the 12 Pro do not. Additionally, if you're coming from the 12 Pro, you also get 120Hz ProMotion, which makes everything feel far more fluid. So display-wise, from the 14 Pro to the 16 Pro, you shouldn't upgrade, but from the 13 Pro or the 12 Pro, you definitely should, as you get a ton of improvements, not just that extra brightness. And by the way, if you love these wallpapers that you're seeing on their screens, they're all from our app Wallpapers, which you can find linked down below. Which brings me to the camera, and here we actually get some significant upgrades even on the standard models. From the 14 to the 16, you'll get a brand new 48 megapixel main sensor, as opposed to 12. This will give you much higher resolution 24 megapixel default photos and far better HDR processing thanks to smart HDR5, so no more blown out skies. Additionally, you also get a 2x sensor crop zoom, which is actually better than the old dedicated 2x zoom modules, and also an improved ultrawide with macro capabilities. From the 13, you get the same upgrades plus action mode, which I found quite good for fast-moving subjects, as well as cinematic mode in 4K 30 as opposed to 1080p. If you're coming from the 12, in addition to these, you'll also get better stabilization on the main module thanks to sensor shift technology. You also get better HDR image processing thanks to Smart HDR5 from 3, and you also get cinematic mode. So if the camera is important to you, I think you should definitely upgrade, no matter if you're coming from the 14, the 13, or the 12. On the Pro models, the upgrades are a bit smaller. If you're upgrading from the 14 Pro, you won't actually get a better main sensor. That's still the same in terms of its specs. The image processing will be better thanks to Smart HDR5, so no more blown out skies. You do, however, get a 48 megapixel ultrawide up from 12, which will also improve the macro quality, a new 5x zoom module from the previous 3x, and the ability to shoot 4K 120fps video, as well as spatial video. If you're coming from the 13 Pro, on top of these improvements, you'll also get a 48 megapixel main sensor, allowing you to shoot sharper 24 megapixel photos by default and 48 megapixel ProRAW photos too. You also get a 2x sensor crop zoom too, as well as 4K 30 cinematic mode from 1080p 30. If you're coming from the 12 Pro, additionally, you'll also get macro capabilities, as well as ProRes video and photo styles. So I'd say if you already have an iPhone 14 Pro, the camera upgrades are quite minor, so I would say don't upgrade. But if you're coming from a 13 Pro or a 12 Pro, every camera module is new. Plus, you also get a number of new camera software features, so definitely. Also, a quick thanks to our sponsor, Clean My Phone, created by the team behind Clean My Mac, my go-to utility app on macOS. This year, I've traveled a lot, so I've been using Clean My Phone after each trip, as I don't need duplicates of each shot, which is something that I usually take. I only need one shot, which is the good one, and Clean My Phone can easily do that for me. The interface is super user-friendly, showing screenshots, screen recordings, duplicates, and blurry photos that can all be removed in seconds. It can also sort portraits, pets, food, travel, and text photos automatically into theme-based folders, which makes looking back at memories so much easier. And everything is also processed on device, so your personal images and info only stays with you. Check out Clean My Phone for free for the first 3 days on iPhone and iPad by using the link below. Which brings me to the performance, and here we do get some significant improvements. The 16 offers a 50% faster CPU performance from the 14 and 13, and 60% compared to the 12. The GPU-wise, the 16 is 50% faster than the 14, 70% faster than the 13, and 200% faster than the 12. So the latest games will run much better on the 16, plus you'll also now be able to play AAA titles like Assassin's Creed Mirage, Resident Evil 4, and more, which none of the previous models could. And we also get more RAM, 8GB on the 16 compared to 6 on the 14, and then 4 on the 13 and the 12. So multitasking will also be miles better on the 16. So yeah, I'd say even if you've got the 14, I would definitely consider upgrading just for that RAM and performance improvements alone, which will result in you being able to use your iPhone for many more years to come. As for the Pro models, we get similar CPU and GPU gains, the only difference being the RAM, as the 14 Pro and the 13 Pro both had 6GB of RAM, so the bigger upgrade really is from the 12 Pro, which had 4. But still, the performance upgrades alone are quite significant, and if you're a mobile gamer especially, I would definitely consider upgrading. But of course, there are also a number of special features that you'll get by upgrading to the iPhone 16s. The biggest one being Apple Intelligence, which none of these previous iPhones have, so you do need the 16 for that. However, Apple Intelligence isn't available yet, so you'll need to wait for iOS 18.1. We also get the ability to record spatial audio now and adjust the sound after. If you're upgrading from the 13 or 12, you'll also get Satellite SOS, which is actually a pretty big deal. It also works with messages now. And you also get Bluetooth 5.3 from 5.0 on the 13 and the 12s for faster pairing with newer AirPods, as well as Wi-Fi 7 as opposed to 6 on all the other models, for speeds of up to 46 gigabits per second, up from 9.6 if you're on a compatible router. So I'd say maybe upgrade if you want Apple Intelligence here. Which brings me to the battery. From the standard 14s to the 16s, you'll get about 2 extra hours of video playback. From the 13s, you'll get 3, whereas from the 12, you'll get 5, so major difference here. Definitely upgrade if you're coming from the 12, maybe even from the rest too. Now, on the Pro models, you get 4 extra hours if you're coming from the 14 Pro, 5 if you're coming from a 13 Pro, and 10 if you're coming from the 12 Pro, these improvements are even greater if you're coming from a Pro Max onto a 16 Pro Max. So here, even if you're coming from the 14 Pro, I would definitely consider upgrading. But of course, charging is also very important, and here we also get some upgrades. No matter which iPhone you're coming from, the 16 and the 16 Pro will give you USB-C charging, faster 45-watt wire charging, and faster 25-watt MagSafe charging. So all in all, if you've got a standard iPhone 14, 13, or 12, the upgrade to the iPhone 16 is 100% worth it. You get a ton of improvements, from the new design to the extra buttons to the brighter screen, much better performance, way more advanced camera hardware, and bigger batteries. If you're coming from a 14 Pro, I would say maybe wait for the 17 Pro, as the cameras are mostly the same, and while you do get some other changes, of course, these are not that significant. However, if you're coming from the iPhone 13 Pro or 12 Pro, I would say 100% consider upgrading to the 16 Pro, as you get a ton of improvements here. Extra buttons, brighter screens, more RAM, a new camera hardware, and also much improved battery life. So let me know which iPhone you're coming from and if you'll be upgrading to the iPhone 16. Check out Clean My Phone by using the link below, and thanks again for watching this video, and stay tuned for more. I'm Daniel, ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.